Let me know if you can see me, hear me, all that good stuff. How's everybody doing? Can you guys see me? Okay, good. All right. Okay, good. I don't know. There must be a big delay tonight or something. I have it on the lowest delay, but that was a long time. All righty. Well, we're going to get back right on. We'll wait a little bit for people to join up. We'll get back on. I'm competing with Trump right now. I can beat Trump. Yeah, no, I know I can't. Yeah. We'll give people a chance to join up here. So next week for the Bible study, we might do a different time or something. I haven't quite figured out how I would do it, but we're talking about taking whatever kids want to go with me to there's a little youth group that has a Bible study for adults and junior high and high school age people. And I kind of thought it'd be a good to get out and meet people, and the kids could have some fun at a youth group. I thought it'd be nice for them to make some friends and do something different for a change. And that starts, I think, at 7 o'clock. So, and I think it goes to like 8:15, maybe 8:15. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we might do it like at 8:30 next week, which is going to mess up, I'm sure, a lot of you people up as far as time goes, because that's pretty late for the East Coast. So I'm sorry for that, but I don't see any other options. I thought about moving the Bible study to a different day of the week, but only other day would be Monday, and it's nice to have a day where we're not doing something. So I don't know. That's probably what we're going to end up doing. We'll try it and see. You guys can, of course, catch the live on replay, and if we do it at 8:30, and for you East Coast people, I apologize that, but could change the day. Yep, definitely could, and that's still a possibility. Claudia, we're doing Bible study. Don't do that, okay? And maybe I thought about even earlier, but even if I do it like at 6, then I'd have to be done by. I mean, it starts at 7, so I'd have to do it at like 5:30, which that's time for dinner. So I don't think I can really do it earlier. Well, we'll see how it goes. I appreciate you guys being understanding. I just thought it'd be a good, fun time to let the kids do something different for a change. And all righty, where are we at? 60 people? We'll give it a couple more minutes here, maybe 5 after the hour or something. Is that every week then, the time change? Not sure what you mean, but it will go try. We're going to try it out and see how the kids like it. And I don't know if there'll be lots of people there or won't be lots of people there. There's a couple other places they have youth groups that I thought we could try out, and they might be different times or different days. But Wednesday seems to be a pretty popular youth group day. So the church that we were thinking about trying is at 7. So we're probably going to do that next week. So we'll do a slightly later time. We'll probably plan on 8:30 is my goal. And if it starts a little late, it says to 8:15, but I'm guessing there's some time for talking in there. I'm not sure about. Yeah, but I mean, it says it was 7 to 8. I could be home by 8:30. But it said 8:15, which is weird. So I'm wondering if it ends at 8, but people hang around for a little while. I'm not sure. I might put it at 8:45 just to be safe or something and start it early maybe, or I don't know. So just be aware that the time might be different next week. Oh, I don't know if I don't have the audio Bible queued up. Give me a second. We'll get more people joining up anyways. Playlists.
Genesis.
Not in Genesis.
Matthew 25.
Yeah, it would be 8:30 Mountain MST. So if you can type that in, 8:30 MST 2, and then you can put your time zone, and Google will tell you what time it is. We'll try it and see how it goes. It'll be there on the replay for anybody that misses it. I'm sorry about all the weird timings on Bible study. All right, well, I think we've kind of settled down about where we're going to be, I think. So we can go ahead and get started. We're going to be in Matthew 25. Yeah, it might be a little tight. We'll figure it out. And, yep, turn that down, baby girl. And it's kind of continuing off of the Matthew 24, which we talked about. And this is just more parables about that time, basically all just talking about the suddenness and the unexpected nature of it and the being prepared. More of the same stuff, pretty much for the whole chapter. So, alrighty, well, here we go.
At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Sir, sir," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "I tell you the truth, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one, he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man with the 2 talents also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. "Master," he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. So, you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick, or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
Alrighty, so bunch of parables. And it really is continuing still off of 24, talking about that time when the temple would be destroyed. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out and meet the bridegroom. I've always been curious why he chose 10 virgins. There was probably some symbolism there. It's not 12 like I would have expected, but 10. Don't know what it is, but they do divide nice in half. 5 were foolish and 5 were wise. And we've probably heard this story, but the foolish ones didn't take any oil. The wise took oil in jars, extra oil, along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming. Some people will say there, "Oh, look, long time. See, it's going to be a long time." But if you think about the story, it's only a long time in reference to one day. Because at midnight, the cry rings out, "Here is the bridegroom." So the virgins, they're already they're ready for the wedding. It's wedding day, and he was a long time in coming, as in hours, not years. This was before the reset resurrection. Yeah, they were very, very clueless. I think that's the point. Can you explain verse 35 to 45? We'll get down there. But the wise ones wake up and trim their lamps. Foolish ones said, "Give us some of your oil. My lamps are going out." No, they're not enough for both and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves. And so they go do it. Later they come, others come. They go into the banquet, so they go in. Later the other comes, Sir, sir, open the door for us. But he replied, I tell you the truth, I don't know you. Therefore, and there's the whole point right there, 13. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Again, who is he talking to? He's talking to all the disciples that are there with him. And he's telling them, keep watch. Oh, there's 10. So when Judas dies, there was 12 apostles. When Judas dies, does anybody else die before? That'd be interesting. Although none of them were foolish and wise. I guess that can't be related. I still want to think about why there was 10. So yeah, the ultimate point of this whole parable is for them to be ready. For them to be ready. Because again, this time that he was talking about with the temple, one stone here being left on another, that time was going to be approximately 40 years after him saying this. That's a long time. And so I'm sure people would have been going back to their own thing. I mean, the disciples are going around telling them this is going to happen, and then they're like, forget it. So he's telling them to be wise. Oh, interesting, Mary. I did not know that. Very curious. An interesting thing to put around. It's obviously, I like that it's not really concerned too much about the reason, but they were supposed to be ready to beforehand, because obviously they expected that maybe that would be the case. So the wise ones brought oil because they thought maybe he won't be right away. So, okay, this next one here, the parable of the talents, is my favorite parable. I dare say it's my favorite. The Good Samaritan's way up there too. But this is probably my favorite one. And so the man goes on a journey. He calls his servants and entrusted his property to him. And of course, in this story, the man going on a journey, that's God or Jesus, either way. And to one he gives 5 talents of money. Now, a talent is a unit of weight. That's actually all that it is. You know, in English, we use the word talent to describe a certain skill or a special skill set that you have, something you have a talent in. But it's interesting, that only comes from this parable. The word talent originally is only a Babylonian weight. It's a weight of something. That's all that it is. The way we use the word talent today, like I have a talent for bending my finger back all the way, that is because of how this parable come to be. That people realize that Jesus wasn't talking about actual weights of money. He was talking about other gifts that you may have in your life. And so talent now means something else. But actually what he's talking about here is a weight. And I forget what it is, but a talent of gold, it doesn't say, it says talents of money. But it's a lot. We're going to assume it's gold. And it's a lot of money. Lots. So he gives one 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and another 1 talent. And the interesting thing here is each according to his ability. So the reason why he gave, the reason why he gave the guy 5 talents is because that guy was good enough with money to handle putting 5 talents to use. He gave another guy 2 talents and another guy 1 talent, each according to their ability. That equals 6,000 denarii. That may be a denarius. A denarii is like a day's wage. So you can see that if that's true, that's a lot of money. So the man who received his 5 talents went at once, put money to work, and gained 5 more. So the point is he took what God gave him. I'm going to keep doing that and substituting the point of the parable with its symbolism. God gave the man 5 talents, and he gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. So the point is, he gave them these things because they had the ability to deal with them, and they came through for him. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So when the master comes back, he says, you could have put it on deposit with the bankers, so I would have got interest. So which would be harder to do? Digging a hole in a secret place, where nobody will find it, and burying this talent or going and dropping it off at the bank. And I dare say that it was harder to dig the hole than it was to just drop it off. How much easier would it have been to just drop it off? But the man was, again, and God here, the king, calls him, you wicked, lazy servant. Where is that at? Down here in 26. You wicked, lazy servant. So the guy's in trouble for doing that. Again, after a long time, the master of the servants comes back. And some people say, oh, see, long time. It's got to be a long time away. But again, in the story, the master comes back to the same servants. He didn't come back, 1,000 years later. He comes back to the same servants. And he says, Master, you see, you've had 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. So that's us. These are the things we're supposed to do. God's giving you talents according to your ability. And we are to put them to work and end up at the end of our life with more than what we started at. I like to think of talents as wisdom, things that are wisdom, growing and getting stronger in our faith and getting closer to God. That's what I like to think of it as. But you can write in whatever you'd like here. The point is God has equipped you and given you enough things. That time where in our lives now, when the master goes away, that's our life here on earth. God brings you into this world, and then he's gone on a journey. And of course, when you hear, well done, good and faithful servant, right? That's when you get to heaven. So the time in which the master's gone on the journey, that's our life. That's our mortal life. It epitomizes the servant who was not awake or watchful. Yeah, exactly. I like to think about the interesting way what would have happened here. Like the guy who had 5 talents, right? He was a genius or really good with money or really responsible or something. He was skilled. And so he had all that money. And then there's a guy with 2 talents. Imagine if while this master's gone, imagine these guys talk to each other. I mean, the guy with 5 talents is just better as far as with the money than the guy that has 2 talents. And it's important to note that the master doesn't care. He didn't care one bit that one guy only made 5 and one guy made 2. If that were the case, he would have just given all the money to the guy that had 5 and just left the other people out of it. The point was they had the ability to do these things, and he wanted them to be responsible. And so imagine if they had a conversation. The guy who had the 5 talents might talk to the guy with 2 talents and say, hey, you should invest in soybeans. It's a really great commodity right now. You can make a lot of money doing that. The guy with the 2 talents might say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm gonna go over here and do whatever, buy this business or whatever they did. And they wouldn't have been able to come to an accord on that because the guy that had 2 talents didn't have the ability as the guy that had 5 talents. And that's not the point. And so all that it matters is that you do the best you can with what you have. You don't need to be the guy with 2 or maybe 1.5 or 3.4 talents. Makes you think you must be a 1-talent person? Maybe you are, or maybe you're not. Maybe you have 10, maybe you have 1,000. Maybe you have 15 or maybe you have a half a talent. Maybe you got 0.02 talents. God doesn't care how many you got because he's the one that gave them to you, right? He gave you what you could handle, what he knew you were good with. The important thing is not how much money he gets. The important thing is he saw you were faithful. What does he say? You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. So same thing. He tells the same thing to the guy with 2. Well done. You have been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. So again, the things we have here on earth, nothing compared to what we're going to have in heaven. And so anyways, we get to the guy with 1. Everybody has to focus on the guy with 1, but I'm more interested in the general feel of this parable of God's given you what you need to grow spiritually in your life, to please your master, right? Share in your master's happiness. So when they put whatever the God gave them to work, it made the master happy. So That's what we do. We can read the Bible and find out the things that make God happy, what he's happy with, and we can continue doing those things. And I sincerely believe one of the overall arching themes of all of the Bible and all of our existence is growing up. Andrea called, we talked about Earth, our time here in mortal life, a spiritual nursery. We are spiritually growing for the next life in heaven. And I find it interesting that Jesus always used these parables about little children, or I think it's in James where it talks about, or maybe Hebrews, about being no longer infants, tossed here and there or blown by every wind of teaching of the cunningness, of craftiness of men, but moving on to maturity, growing into more advanced things. And I think it's interesting that God gives us children, and we grow up when we have kids, they are little kids who are really quite ignorant and innocent and don't know anything about anything. They believe anything we tell them. And our job is to help them to grow and to be wise and have their own children. And I think that whole idea of parenthood is a picture of what God does to us. So we start off as little children, and we are to grow to be strong and better in God's eyes. And so those are all things we wrestle with. And I think that's what this parable is really about. He doesn't care how much money you have at the end, how much he had. He cared about if you increased with what you had. You think about what he would have been happy with. You could have put my talent on deposit with the bankers. And how much effort is that? You literally take one day to go down there, or not even one day, part of one day to go down to the bank and leave it there at the bank, and you sign some papers and leave. And you literally have to do nothing else. And this says the master would have been happy with that. I mean, how easy is that? So that's how little you can do for God, and he'll still be happy with it. Of course, the better thing with the guy to have one talent, to make 2 or 3, who knows, whatever else you can do with it. But whatever you do have, you can increase what you have. You don't have to become a genius or a preacher or some wonderful man of God in whatever wonderful capacity you describe in your own head. But you have the ability to be better than what you have. Yeah, Melina, I agree. To use our talents to do good for other people, and God is love, and to give and love and share with others is what he pleases him the most. I think that's probably true. There's lots of things. We have lots of things outlined in the Bible about things that make God happy. And they've always been there. That's the thing, is that they're there for us to read and to do. If we're not doing them, it's not because we don't know what to do, right? There's something else. And that's myself. That's why I've always boiled it back down to wisdom. And because wisdom begets more wisdom. And when wise people will serve the master appropriately. I just like to think of it that way. It may not be what it is. You can describe it however you'd like. But whatever it is, it pleases God when we increase it. So we can keep doing those things. So I'm sorry I spent so long on the parable of the talents, but it's like my favorite story. So then we have the wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So, well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers. When I returned, I should have received it back with interest. So what does he do? He takes the one from him and gives it to the one who has 10. He could have given it to the guy that had 2, but no, he gave it to the guy that had 10 already. It's interesting because who does he say here? Who has the talents? You know, he gave him 5, and he says, here, I have made you 5 more. But who does he say? Give it with the one who has 10 talents. At some point, it seems like the master gave him those talents. There, you can have them. They're yours now. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has, will be taken from him. So, if you're going to be a wicked, lazy servant and not put to work the things which God has given you to use, then you're this wicked, lazy servant. And how easy it is to see for the guy that has 1. What if you're a guy who has ability for 5 and you only make 2? And you're feeling all proud of yourself because you made 2. but maybe you actually could have made a lot more. The important thing is just to do the best you can with what God gives you. Wow, Janet, that's quite amazing. Thank you. That's quite an encouragement. It's not bedtime yet. You got a half hour. Go play. Let's see here. And it takes that servant, when he takes out what he has, the one talent, gives it to the guy that has 10, takes that worthless servant. Worthless. That's what you are if you don't put to use what God has given you, at least to the point of putting it in the bank. You're a worthless, wicked, lazy servant. Into the darkness will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's those buzzwords again, weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's synonymous with hell. Every time it's said, that's what it's talking about. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. So we could talk in Hebrews. Maybe we should. I don't know. Well, anyways, we'll continue talking about that. But Jesus already ascends to the throne. He ascends to the throne when he rises from the dead and he ascends into heaven and sits at the Father's right hand. That's what it says in Hebrews, which of course was written way after this. All the nations, I think it's very funny. I bet you that word is ethnos in the Greek, which they always been, NIV at least, is always translated as Gentiles. But now they're going to translate it as nations, like it should be. But I'll bet you that's what it is. I kind of want to just see. 32. Ethne. There it is. Ethnos. Yep. Nation. All the nations will be gathered before him. He will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And again, this is an interesting thing. This is the judgment here. Does this say that they're going back to earth? Is that the point of this resurrection that takes place? That all the nations will be gathered. He's going to send some back to earth to live forever and some to hell. No, the point is when the resurrection. The point is not to live back on earth. The point is the ones that raised from the dead go to heaven or hell. It's a judgment for the people that died before Jesus. So he put the sheep on his right, the goats on his left. The king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." How encouraging is that? This is Jesus talking. There's not a lot of direct talk about heaven in the Bible specifically, but this is a big one to me. "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." That's awesome. "For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. Thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in." Shh. "I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, you looked after me. I was in prison, you came to me." Turn it down. Why don't you go play somewhere else, baby girl? I'm doing a Bible study. And they're going to say, "When did we see those things?" And he says, "I tell you the truth, whatever you did, one of the least of these, you did for me." Is that what it says? Least of these you did for me? That's not what it says. It says, least of these brothers of mine. So this is one of those things that gets misinterpreted a lot. So when people, this concept of feeding those who are hungry and thirsty, the ones who are sick, visiting them in prison, helping them, is always, they seem to apply to just anybody. But it isn't just anybody. It's a least of these brothers of mine. So this is talking about people who are Christians. They are already brothers of Jesus, and those are the people that he's referring to here. That isn't to say we should be jerks to everybody else. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about all these people that went out and did things for him. Again, what is he talking to? This whole 24. This is the same section. He just finished telling them, you're going to go out, you're going to make disciples, you're going to go and bring the gospel to all the nations, and you're going to do all these things for me to be ready. And then he says, least of these brothers of mine. So all these people who are doing these things, they're spreading the gospel, doing God's work. If you did it for them, you did it for me. And so that's the important thing. Of course, be nice to everybody, but when least of these is not necessarily the average person on the street. What, buddy? Okay. Well, when I get done, we can talk. Okay. Same thing. When I was hungry, then he'll say to those on his left, I was a stranger. I was hungry. You did not give me nothing to eat. I was thirsty. You gave me nothing to drink. Stranger, you did not invite me in. I needed clothes. You didn't clothe me. I was sick and in prison. You did not look after me. When do we see these things? Whatever you did not do one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Again, going back off the other one, brothers of mine, they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. So this is a big deal. And it's not just about giving food to people or water to people or visiting people. It's about being good and righteous and good people and looking after everybody, all fellow Christians and non-Christians. But it's being respectful with what we have. So, I mean, there's 3 parables here is all we had, but they're not a lot in there. There's not a lot of deep stuff here. The parables are pretty easy. There's just a lot of other things we can get from them. This parable of the talents is told in other places in the Gospels as the parable of the minas, and another different unit of money that I think is not clear how much it is, but it's basically the same story, but told at a different time. This one here seems to be relating it to the Matthew 24 stuff. The other one is more generalized. I still think the story can be very generalized here. The point is to be ready with what he gave you. I think the gifts of talents are when we have conviction to do good things and what we feel is the right thing to do. I think that's accurate. So I was just discussing with somebody, and I can't remember what I was talking about. It was when I was talking the other night at the live on the when I was at the lake, and we were talking about health stuff, and people would they'll say we should eat more or whatever in the comments, and they mean well. And again, everybody has a different amount of talents, right? And I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying that it's bad to be healthier. Don't misunderstand. But everybody's at a different level. And so if you believed, let's take a myth that's not true anymore that most people would agree with. There was a time when they said smoking was good for you. I have some old family fun books where the family is instructed to all light up a cigarette and try to balance on a barrel at the same time that they're smoking. And anyway, there was a time when they thought smoking was good for you. Obviously now everybody knows it's not good for you or whatever. But there was a time when they thought it was good for you. It cleared your lungs and all kinds of things that they said. And if somebody today would lived under a rock and thought that it was still good for you, they might recommend that. You should really smoke some cigarettes. It would really help your lungs. They would be doing something good for you, right? They just are ignorant about what they're saying. The point is that they were doing something good. Maybe that's the guy who has 1 talent. Maybe the guy that has 5 talents in that world says, no, cigarettes, or 2 talents says, cigarettes aren't good for you, they're bad for you. You need to be eating omega fatty acids. And maybe the guy that 5 talents says, actually it's been proven omega fatty acids are bad for you. You need to be, whatever, eating raw foods or something. It's a silly analogy. My point is that everybody's at a different level in life. And so I think that's accurate, that we should do the things that we think are good. We should be learning. We should be reading the Bible and studying and finding the ways we could help people. Some people would just give money to somebody and say it was helpful. Maybe that is helpful to them. Somebody else might say, let me help you get a job. That might be more useful than money. And somebody else may do something else. The point is that they did something good for somebody, not exactly specifically what was the most beneficial.
I'm reminding you, it's time to bounce off to bed.
You guys can start your bounce off to bed routine. You can get started. Get a gumball and a book, and you can start doing your stuff.
It's time to bounce off to bed.
I'll get you a brownie once you guys are all ready after you do your bounce off to bed routine. Yeah, we all grow at different rates. And again, the guy that had 5 if he would just tell his secrets to the guy with 2, the guy with 2 could learn a lot more. They could have told their secrets to the guy with 1. They could have all shared their information, and they would have done so much better. I got a new gumball machine. Yeah, I got a new gumball machine for the kids for their part of the bounce off the bed routine. Starts with a gumball. You get a yellow gumball? All right, that's awesome. All right, keep going. They just eat the gumball. So it's just a fun. Andrea's plan was to start the bedtime routine with something exciting. That's number 1. We have a little chart. Number 1 is you get a book to take to bed, and you get a gumball. And then 2 is you got to go clean up. No, I know. And then, anyways, it's something exciting to start the thing. Once they're on the list, then they want to go to the next one. If the first one was brush your teeth, they're like, no. But since it's a gumball, they're like, ooh, let's run over, get started on this list. Oh, most of them swallow them. Andrea was a big fan of swallowing gumballs. I was never that way, but she assured everybody that they do come out, and they've all been encouraged to swallow their gum. So I do not do that. So what are we doing after this book? Daddy's doing a Bible study. But yeah, anyways, the point about the growing at different rates, everybody's different, and we have different information. The king didn't care. He didn't care at all. If he cared, he would have said, hey, you 2 with 2 and 1, I want you to sit on a class held by the guy with 5 and do whatever he tells you with the money, and here you go. And he could have all put it to this, and then they would have been so much better, had the ability of the guy with the 5, and they could have all earned 10 talents with the 5. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't want you to be as awesome as the next guy. He doesn't want you to be better than or worse than the guy with 1 or 2 or 10. The point is he wants you to be as good as you can be with what God has given you. And so if we can, we are expected to keep growing and even being in different places. And and again, I think as Christians, a lot of times what we do, and even not Christians, even just in secular things, that there'll be like the guy with 5 is going to the guy with the 2 and the 1, and they're chastising them. You're doing the wrong thing. You've got the thing backwards. You shouldn't pray like that. You need to have this way. You need to cover your head. You need to uncover your head. You need to go to this kind of a church or that kind of a church. God can't hear you unless you call him by the proper name. We've got all these different things, and we're all running around chastising everybody for not being like us. And in reality, God just doesn't care about any of that nonsense. He just wants you to take what you have and grow it and not be the guy who sits on his butt his entire life. Because isn't that the analogy? He goes away on a journey, and when the master comes, well done, good and faithful servant, that's clearly the end of your life. That's when you are dead and going to heaven. And when you get the things that God gave you, that's when you're born. So if you literally sit on your butt and do nothing for God your entire life, and if you think about the analogy, the guy with the 1 talent, he knew who his master was. He knew that his master gave him something to do with it, and he knew that his master was going to ask him to reconcile that later on. It's almost he's not an unbeliever, so to speak. He believed in his master. He just didn't do anything with what God gave him. Nothing at all. And that's pretty interesting. Yep, I think we will probably just stick to 1 chapter here today, and we'll just kind of keep talking about stuff. "7 years in the tummy," yeah, I heard that. The gum doesn't digest, but that's total wives' tale. It's true. I tried to tell her that it was something when that's what I learned early on. One of those dumb health wives' tales that we learn about. But 13th, actually, Carol. So Friday is the live dinner. So, and I thankfully Rachel told me that I was going to be going to Magic that night, obviously. So I can't do it at 6 to 7 because Magic starts at 6:30. So I actually have it scheduled for 5 o'clock. So, and I'll probably cut it a couple minutes early so me and Thomas can get out of here. and whoever else wants to go on Magic Night. So I don't know, Marissa. I can't imagine that there's anything in our body that hangs out no matter what you eat for years. Your intestines go straight through, so I don't know if there's anything that gets stuck in there. I think it's one of those stories parents invented so their kids wouldn't choke or something. What will kill you from A to Z? Someone was talking about that. I heard somebody else reference that. I didn't realize it was Thomas that said that, but yeah, I'd have to check that out. That sounds interesting. Falling asleep with gum. Yeah, that's the more danger in our family is kids falling asleep with gum and then it getting in their hair. All right, getting off to bed. Don't forget to get a book, baby girl. Oh, Thomas is right there. So based on this, do you believe unsaved go to hell at death and saved to heaven rather than in the future? Yeah. Yep, I do. I think it's funny that I think most Christians believe that, but they have never considered. You guys know that I'm a preterist. There's nothing else, no more secrets about that. So I believe because the resurrection has happened, the resurrection is for the people who were dead, the people that died before Jesus, who died before the resurrection. They had a chance to go to heaven or hell. That's what that's about. Yep, not right now. Don't come over here. Stay over there with you're not dressed. Go get it in your bed, and I'll come bring you guys some milk and a brownie in a little bit, okay? So yeah, I believe that now, because the resurrection has happened, there's no longer Sheol or the grave. Some people have called it purgatory. I don't believe in that, but that's the idea that you used to sleep in the ground when you died, awaiting the resurrection. But now that I believe that has happened, now you go right to heaven or to hell when you die. That's what I think. Yeah. Well, I think that the general idea, people understand they want to go to heaven right now when they die. So today, people think that when you die, you go to heaven. Even though if they thought about it from a biblical standpoint, nothing would say you go to heaven when you die. They would say that you actually would sleep and await judgment. Hey, you guys, stop. Sophia is very tired. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. This is kind of getting out of control for a second. Stop crying, please, okay? Daddy's almost done. Sorry about that. We were trying to protect Hannah waking up, but too late. Hannah woke up. This is so strange to me. As a child, I heard that we go straight to heaven. As a teenager, I learned about sleeping in the ground and the resurrection. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Melina. Most people will say you go right to heaven when you die, but if you go back and study what the Bible actually says about that, it definitely seems to indicate you sleep in the ground until the resurrection. So, which then I heard people say, well, when you're asleep, it's like you wake, all of a sudden time passes and you don't realize it, and you just instantly wake up and you go to heaven because the resurrection is right then, and there's no time when you're asleep or whatever. I don't know. I've never been dead. But purely from a biblical standpoint, the resurrection were for people that had died, and then they go to heaven or they go to hell. Now that has happened, now each of us, when they die, Of course, in my opinion, it's happened. If you guys believe that it hasn't happened yet, that's totally fine. But you have to think about how this works, because otherwise, I think you probably can't make the case that you go right to heaven when you die, if you think the resurrection hasn't happened yet. So I believe that it has, and so because of that, now we go right to heaven or hell when we die, and we're just judged upon our death. Ever miss, Daniel 12. Someone will rise to everlasting life. So let me tell you, everlasting life, does that mean you're never ever going to die physically? Is that what it's talking about? Jesus is the one that talked about eternal life. So eternal life, is eternal life eternal, physical, mortal life with a body and a heart and things pumping and all that sort of a thing? I would say no. Everlasting life is heaven. That's eternal life. It doesn't call it heaven. Udanos is a totally Greek term. So, but it did talk about resting with the fathers. There's plenty of places in the Old Testament that mention going and resting with your fathers. Daddy's almost done with his Bible study, okay? Can you wait just for 10 minutes? Trying to think of a hell just through there is a heaven. Well, you don't have to worry about it if you're serving God. It's not something you need to concern yourself with. Hey. Interesting. Hey, you guys, will you go back to your rooms, please, for now? I'll come in there and tuck you in a minute, okay? Why don't you guys get ready for bed? Yeah, Melina, I actually talked to a lot of Seventh-day Adventists. I haven't heard that. Most Seventh-day Adventists I talk to seem to say that they're still sleeping, awaiting the resurrection. But I haven't heard that one before, that the judgment started in 1844 is still going on. I guess judgment, I see, yeah. You talk about the dark day and all that thing, and oh my goodness. Real life happening here, people. Never missed. It was never about heaven. That's what many call after Dante's Paradise Boat. The Sadducees did not believe in any of it. Yeah, you're right. They did. They also didn't believe in angels or spirits. So, I mean, you either don't believe in angels, you can go the Sadducee method. But that's what they asked Jesus. The Sadducees came to him and said, a woman, was married and then her son married him, and all the brothers married him. At the resurrection, whose son will she be, since the 7 were married to her? And Jesus is the one that said, he says, you don't understand the power of God. He says, but about the dead rising, doesn't it say, I am the God of Abraham, I am the God of Isaac, I am the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead for a living, for to him all are alive. So, yeah, you can say it's not about heaven because it's not mentioned. I don't understand your logic there, Emremis, because over and over again in the Old Testament it says, you will rest with your fathers. So, or you will not rest with your fathers. So, you're right. The word heaven doesn't appear there because heaven is a Greek word. So, they called it heaven because that's what they spoke. In Jesus' day, the primary language of the day was Greek, believe it or not. There was no Hebrew spoken in Jesus' day. Aramaic in certain places, and most of the language was Greek. And so they used Greek words. And that's highlighted by, like, Upokrites, hypocrite. That word means a Greek play actor, and Jesus used hypocrite over and over again. Purely a Greek poetic term. So it shows how much they used the Greek influence of their life. So they also Gehenna, the word for hell, Gehenna is the same type of thing. So. There's quite a stuff going on over there. I think we're going to wrap it up. Your girls are getting out of control here, guys. I believe they go to a place of rest according to the Master's parable of Lazarus. I heard it called the ether. Well, didn't you just? I'm not sure if you just joined us, Emma Miss, but we just read a passage here that said, look here. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." So whatever you talk about that, if you look in Revelation, it says, "I saw heaven open," and he sees the tree of life in the garden of God, in heaven. So that's, and of course they would have called it the sky. They saw it open and they see that up there or whatever. So you can say or not say that it's not part of everything, but I definitely think that it is. You're right that there's not a lot talked about in the Bible, but I think there's enough. And we call it heaven because Jesus called it heaven. I don't know what it's called. I could care less what its name is. But Jesus is saying there's a kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. So there's something there that those who are on his right get to go into. All right, they woke Hannah up, and of course now everybody's crying, but no, you can't, you're not dressed, baby girl. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Okay, we'll pray. Dear God, thank you so much for this day, and thank you for these words, and I pray they will help us to understand how we can put our talents to use, and we would be able to be welcomed into the many things that we will be put in charge of in those days, and help us all to learn how we can grow and better make you proud. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, I will see you guys later. Thanks a lot.